Think you know all there is to know about candy canes? Think again. These goodies have been dominating December for centuries, popping up on trees, in stockings, and yes, in some truly cursed flavors like mac and cheese. Who's asking for that? Ever tried unwrapping one without snapping it in half? Mission level impossible. In this video, we're diving deep into the step-by-step process to answer the ultimate holiday question: how are candy canes made? For anyone who doesn't already know, candy canes are the edible exclamation points of Christmas. Peppermint-striped, cane-shaped, and impossible to ignore. Born in the late 1600s, but fully embraced by the 1800s, they've become as essential to the Christmas holidays as twinkling lights and awkward family photos. Whether dangling from tree branches or melting into hot cocoa, but a few key ingredients are absolutely essential. And each serves a purpose. Skip one or get it wrong, and you're left with something that's definitely not a candy cane. First, sugar. Its role in candy canes goes beyond simply making it sweet. It's also what holds the whole thing together. Heated to 285 degrees Fahrenheit or 140 degrees Celsius, sugar hits the soft crack stage, where it hardens into the crunch we expect. Go too low and it's a sticky disaster. Too high, burnt sugar ruins the taste. Corn syrup is next, and it's the peacekeeper. It stops sugar from crystallizing into gritty chunks and keeps the mixture glossy. Some recipes use honey or glucose syrup instead, but while they get the job done, they can mess with the flavor. Water might seem unimportant, but it's the glue that starts it all, dissolving the sugar and corn syrup. And then their furnace is usually used for melting metals in factories, but here Nick and Debbie, the owners of Lucas Candies, have adapted it to heat the sugar mixture. Modern versions of these furnaces can cost tens of thousands of dollars, but antique models like this one, if properly maintained, can still work well. Furnaces like this are rare today, and many businesses using this kind of equipment have closed down. This makes the furnace a piece of history. The furnace heats the sugar mixture to exactly 106 degrees Fahrenheit, with the temperature constantly checked using a high heat thermometer. Getting the right temperature directly affects the final candy. If the sugar gets hotter than required, the final product will be too brittle, and if it's not hot enough, the sugar mixture will be too soft to work with. One unique ingredient added at this stage is cream of tartar, which is a fine powder made from tartaric acid, a byproduct of winemaking. This ingredient slightly changes the acidity of the blend and a butter substitute to keep the hot sugar from sticking. These cooling tables allow the sugar to cool evenly, staying workable for the next steps. Cooling tables like this can cost over $5,000 depending on their size and heat resistance. The table's heavy build absorbs the heat from the sugar and gives a stable surface to work on. The sugar is split into two batches, one for the white part of the candy cane and one for the bright red. Steel bars are placed around the sugar to keep the heat in, allowing it to stay soft enough to shape. Managing the heat is often overlooked at this stage. Sure, the sugar needs to be soft enough to work with, but ideally you'd like to keep your face intact and unliquefied by the scorching fumes. A melted face is definitely not something your family wants to see at the Christmas dinner table, I'll tell you that. Moving on, one batch of sugar is flavored with peppermint oil, which gives candy canes their signature taste. This can be a bit tricky, as well as contaminating the product. The peppermint oil must be added at the right moment so that the flavor blends seamlessly without messing up the sugar. The red batch of sugar is mixed with food-grade coloring. Unlike mass-produced candy canes, where the red stripes are often added after the candy is shaped, this method mixes the color directly into the sugar. This gives it a deeper, more even color and prevents fading. Workers fold and mix the sugar to distribute the color evenly without overheating it. The next part of the process is dedicated to getting the right consistency. The white sugar, which, if you remember, has peppermint oil added, goes through a pulling procedure on a metal hook attached to the wall. As the sugar is pulled, it stretches and folds repeatedly, trapping air with each motion. This pulling makes the sugar's color lighter. from its natural golden yellow to a bright snowy white when it cools. This takes about 75 pulls and can take 15 to 20 minutes. As hard, and because the red sugar is more sensitive to overworking, it's usually handled by the more experienced workers. When both batches are ready, the real artistry begins. The edges of the white sugar are slightly dampened so they stick to the red sugar. These pieces are then layered to create the striped pattern everyone knows. The combined sugar is rolled and stretched into long, even ropes, and this has to be done quickly. The layers get lined up and then the ropes are twisted to create the classic spiral pattern, which takes skill to keep the stripes even along the entire length of the candy cane. The final shaping can be done by hand or with tools that curve the ropes into the traditional hook shape of a candy cane. For smaller, bite-sized candies, small-scale production facilities tend to use vintage candy cutters. This manual device, built to handle heavy use, cuts the sugar into even pieces. The cutter's sharp blades give each piece a razor-clean cut. Within a few minutes of shape, quick and easy. These guys are perfect for tossing into stockings, handing out to kids, or decorating gingerbread houses. You could probably eat a whole handful before anyone notices. Then there's the standard size, the OG of candy canes. Measuring about 6 inches, these are the ones you hang on your tree, stir into hot cocoa, or munch on while wrapping last-minute gifts. They're the perfect mix of practical and festive, always reliable, but never boring. But when it's time to go big, you need the large candy canes. These bad boys are anywhere from 7.5 to 12 inches long and bring a whole different energy. Hand one to someone and it's like saying, I take my holiday cheer very seriously. And for the real showstoppers, there are giant candy canes, the stuff of legend. Towering at over 12 inches, they're too massive for most tree branches, but ideal for dramatic displays. Whether you're using them as is a traditional Christmas candy in the southern United States made with a few simple ingredients: peanuts, sugar, corn syrup, and baking soda. The baking soda creates tiny air bubbles that make the brittle light and airy. In most recipes, the corn syrup is liquid, but Nick and Deb use a solid version. This keeps the moisture low, which leads to a crispier, non-sticky feel. Nick's family has been making brittle for generations, but he and Deb wanted to try something new. Both love craft beer, and one day they thought, what if we add it to the brittle? It worked even better than they imagined, adding a depth of flavor no one expected. Their favorite is a chocolate and peanut butter porter, which has rich malty notes that strengthen the caramelized sugar and roasted peanut flavors, making the brittle bold and unique. The process starts by melting the sugar and solid corn syrup together. The solid corn syrup usually comes from specialty suppliers and costs around $4 to $6. Right. Once the combination reaches the right temperature, they add butter solids. Unlike regular butter, which has water, butter solids give 100% pure flavor without adding moisture. This brings out a richness that works well with the sweet, nutty base. Then they add baking soda and salt. The baking soda reacts with the hot mix, creating tiny air bubbles that make the brittle light and airy. It kind of looks like a fun science experiment, don't you think? After that, they pour the mix onto a flat surface to cool. They use a heat-resistant marble slab, which allows the heat to spread out evenly. Once poured, they flip and stretch the brittle while it's still soft. Stretching the brittle takes strength and skill, and it took years to master. Knowing when to flip and stretch is what turns a good batch into a great one. When the brittle cools enough to handle, it's time to break it into pieces. In the early days, you could do this by hand, which was slow and tiring. But here, an old tool called the brittle hammer is used. This lightweight mallet ensuring the chocolates look professional. During busy times, the workshop is a literal whirlwind of activity, with Nick, Deb, and their small team working long hours to keep up. But when you take a bite out of one of their candy canes or brittle pieces, all that hard work seems worth it in the end. Now, starting at number 5 and counting down to number 1, here are the top 5 most interesting and commonly unknown fun facts about candy canes. Are you ready? Candy canes didn't start as holiday treats. they were basically sugar sticks for survival. In 1670, a choirmaster at a cathedral in Germany handed out straight sugar sticks to children during long nativity services to keep them quiet. They were later bent into their now famous crook shape to resemble a shepherd's staff, connecting them to the Christmas story. Practical and symbolic, candy canes were the original multitaskers, pulling double duty as pacifier. Candy cane, it's not by accident, it's physics. Candy canes made from boiled sugar harden into a crystalline structure similar to glass. In fact, pound for pound, a candy cane can handle more pressure than your average pane of window glass before breaking. Some manufacturers even test the candy's durability to make sure it can withstand shipping without crumbling. This durability also makes them popular for crafts, whether as makeshift hooks for tree ornaments or the world's least effective self-defense tool. When we say giant candy cane, we're not talking about those oversized ones from the store. In 2012, a dude named Elaine Roby created a candy cane that measured 51 feet long and over 900 pounds. For context, that's taller than a giraffe and heavier than a baby elephant. This massive, sugary masterpiece took days to make and had to be constructed outside because, let's face it, there's no kitchen openly advertise this, because who wants a tiger with a sugar rush? But they often accept expired candy canes from factories as part of enrichment activities. Watching a 10-foot giraffe carefully nibble on a peppermint stick is truly a Christmas miracle. There you have it, the top 5 most interesting, lesser-known facts about candy canes, counting down to the most fascinating one of them all. Which fun fact surprised you the most? Let me know, and don't forget to experiment with your candy canes or just crunch on them obnoxiously during a family holiday movie. So now you know exactly how candy canes are made, which brings us to our other videos. The video we posted before this one might just shock you.